Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tara.
Greetings, citizens, you damn dirty apes.
This is a science fiction movie podcast. We get together, we've watched a sci-fi movie, we talk about it. It is really quite that simple. And today we are returning to a franchise that we are working through, and we had a bit of a gap between 3 and 4 just due to other things popping up, but we are returning to the 4th entry in the Planet of the Apes series, which is Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. And this came out in 1972, and is the story of Caesar, who of course is the same name that's used in the reboot trilogy, which we're going to get to later, of course. But that is the child of Cornelius and Zira, and his story kind of at the age of about 20, because it's about 20 years after the first film. So it's actually set in the near future, you know, at the time. Obviously, we're actually way past this year now in real life, you know, versus what it would be.
A future of turtlenecks.
A future, yes, all the villains. Why in this future all the humans are walking around like they're part of the SS? I'm not entirely sure, but they really are.
Well, they have lost their humanity. They treat animals like slaves. So,
they do. Well,
yes.
What I forgot about this
dystopian future.
What I forgot about this movie is that a key part of the premise is that cats and dogs went extinct. We find this out early on, and apes were then replaced as the pets of human beings, and then that turned into slaves as time went on. So we're going to be tackling some big subjects this episode with this movie. Subjects that I don't necessarily think this movie is actually deep enough to really pull off, but we'll get into that as we go. But yes, so we'll start spoiler free as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we go into spoilers. We'll get straight into it. We've both seen this before. Now, Tara, you did watch both cuts of this film for this episode.
Right. So the Blu-ray comes with a theatrical cut and a unrated version. So the first time I watched it, I watched the theatrical cut. But this time I watched the unrated, and I looked up ahead of time to see what the difference was, and my understanding was that because the movie was so violent, it was going to be given an R rating, and because all the previous ones were rated G, the producers or whatever the studio didn't want to release an R-rated version of the Planet of the Apes. So they cut out a lot of the violence in the film and made that the theatrical cut. What I didn't realize is that they totally changed the ending to the point where I have very different ratings for each version of the film.
That is very interesting. I might have seen the alternate cut when I first saw this years ago, but I don't really remember it. For this podcast episode, I watched the theatrical cut because until Tara mentioned that she'd done this right before we started recording, I didn't even realize there was 2 cuts. So yeah, we'll find out what the differences are, probably more in the spoiler section, because that's where all that stuff is going to pop up. But we will talk about the differences there when we get to them. So, but yeah, like I said, so this is 20 years after. We're in kind of a near future that is went a little bit dystopian. Cats and dogs have went extinct, as we find out with a nice statue early on in the film that's just commemorating
poor Rover.
commemorating the deaths of all cats and dogs in the world. And
were you upset that the cat didn't have a name, but the dog did?
I didn't even think about it, if I'm honest. Now that you've pointed out, it is a great injustice, and the canine bitch, well, it was Rover, so it's the male dog, but whatever, doesn't matter. That dirty damn dog.
I like to think the cat's name was Gus. It's a good cat name.
Of course. Is that a good cat? Is there a lot of cats named Gus?
I didn't think so, but Trader Joe's came out with an advent calendar, and on it has an advent calendar for cats. And it has a picture of a cat named Gus on it. So maybe it is.
Is it cat treats in the little windows?
Yeah.
Cool.
He doesn't eat them. The dog eats them.
And the cat's just sitting at the side seething like, yes, this is why. I
mean, he seems excited when I take the package out every morning, and then he just like sniffs at it and goes, not for me.
Nah, he's like, this is why. This is why one day I will kill the canine population. Total feline saturation. Okay. That's my maniacal cat.
There's a pretty funny Futurama episode about that, actually.
Oh, I need to watch Futurama.
cats
more
from
of it.
another planet. Where it's sunny all day and they chase chicken salmon around.
Chicken salmon?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that is kind of the propelling. We do have Montalbán back as the circus owner, who's kind of here for some of the movie to kind of like bridge the two films. I mean, he doesn't really look 20 years older because it's only been like a year in real time, but that, you know, it's whatever.
He's got some white in his beard.
We'll let it go. We'll let it go.
Yeah.
What I think
He's Ricardo Montalbán. He ages well.
What I think's so weird about this movie now, especially after the new trilogy, is that I often say that sometimes that Rise is kind of the closest thing that it's a remake of is this movie. And watching this again, that's not really even really true. It's like the plot is completely different, but it is technically the closest just because of where it ends. Like just because of where this ends and where Rise ends, it's kind of the closest one you can kind of link up and say, oh, they kind of said, let's take essentially what Conquest did and do it in a completely different plot in a completely different manner, but to get to a similar end point. And that's kind of why you compare them. Otherwise, it is completely different because I mean, the movie opens with guards like training like squads of apes who are in jumpsuits as prisoners and slaves and being taught menial tasks, and which honestly, one of my first critiques of not so much the movie but the human beings in the movie, and I guess to an extent the writing, because no one ever really seems to point this out, which is really really silly. And I guess you could argue it's intentional as part of the hubris of man or whatever, but I'm like, the people in this movie, because of what happened in Escape, because of the two apes, and because they found out that in the future apes had taken over and man was the animals, mans were the servants, whatever. They've got this fear. They've got this fear of apes getting smarter and taking over. So I ask you, why did you breed more of them and start training them how to do things around the house? You're actively making them smarter.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
I think they were kind of put in a corner because I'm pretty sure in either the first or the second film, they talk about how apes were first pets for humans, but then became intelligent and revolted. So I think this has already been pre-established. And so, you know, they want to use the son of Cornelius and Zira in order to tell a story, but they have to like, they have to incorporate that in still.
That would explain the pet part. It doesn't explain what... I mean, again, I get the themes of the film and the hubris, but just from a raw logic of these people are literally scared that apes are going to get smarter, but they choose to train them to do more and more tasks that are, you know, requiring more knowledge, that are clearly evolving their intelligence by training them how to pour drinks or you know, make deliveries, go pick up things at the store, stuff like that.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it doesn't bother me too much. I think it's more important that humans chose to domesticate apes and then realize that they did have the ability to learn things a lot and be able to do menial tasks for them, and then automatically just kind of turned them into slaves.
I mean, I guess what I'm saying here is that the humans will get everything that's coming to them in this movie. Although, that said, technically that'd be true anyway because of everything else. And perhaps, honestly, the depressing thought to go along with this, just to counteract my own point, is that human beings in real life constantly do things that are not in their best interest and are clearly going to lead to problems later on, and just are ignorant and don't believe that the bad thing will happen. So you know what? Maybe this movie's actually blisteringly realistic.
It won't happen in their lifetime, so they don't have to worry about it.
Yes. They're just like, nah, the apes will never be smart enough to do that. Even though there's constant references to them believing that, yeah, you know, the apes can't read. Not yet, anyway. Like, well, stop training them to do smarter things. Like, you're actively creating the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, maybe Caesar speeds things up a bit by existing, but...
True, but then there's a thing that happens at the end that's kind of like, well, maybe it would have happened regardless of whether or not Caesar was there.
Like I say, I think Caesar sped things up. I don't think he actually changed the course in any way. Just maybe accelerated it a bit. So I had that thought as I was watching it. But I mean, I guess you want the villains to appear somewhat villainous because we're rooting for Caesar, we're rooting for the apes. Which is why I think fundamentally comparing it to the new trilogy, it completely looks unfavourable. Because one of the things that the new trilogy does, especially in Dawn, is that it makes you want both sides to win. It makes you care about characters on both sides of the conflict, and you want them to work out a deal. You want them to find peace. In this movie, it's not that at all. In this movie, it's none of the humans, barring one, are all slime bag, basically Nazis, and the way they talk and walk around and act. And then the apes, well, there's a little bit, at least at the theatrical cut, there's a little bit towards the end that kind of brings in a little bit of a theme of mercy and stuff like that. It feels a bit tacked on, and maybe that's something that we'll talk about properly when you can tell me the differences, because I've got a feeling that might go a bit differently. It does, you know, I think the character of Caesar in this, you think of Caesar in the new films, and Caesar is this nuanced character who's weighing up his compassion for humans because of his upbringing, because of his father, but also his commitment to his kind who have been in cages that he's trying to sort of nurse and sort of help take forward and have them grow and become to a level of intelligence like he is, so that they can take it even further than he does. Right. In this movie, by the end, Caesar is mostly just like, he's more like Scar. He's more like a raving, you know, zealot who's just like, death to the humans, they're the worst. Screw them all.
He was raised by a good human too.
Yeah.
I think a lot of, you know, the new trilogy is so reliant on, I mean, it's really well acted, or it's really well written and well directed, the new trilogy. But so much of it is just on the performance of Andy Serkis, and with the ability that we have now through motion capture to get that pure performance from him. However, in this one, I thought Roddy McDowall was amazing in this movie, and he has to act through a lot worse.
No, I think he is really good in this movie. I'm just saying that the character is not as nuanced, and maybe that sounds like I'm giving it shit for not being as good as stuff that came later, but the stuff that I'm complaining about is not the visual effects. I'm not complaining that, you know, we've got these ape suits versus the state-of-the-art CG that's in the new trilogy that is still jaw-droppingly gorgeous and like realistic.
Well, so much of the performance is coming, like, you get all of it in the new trilogy. In this one, he has to perform through makeup and a mask, and
but I don't think,
much as you don't want to be distracted by it, it is there, and you do see his teeth, his real teeth sometimes behind the ape teeth. I
do not think, though, that prohibits a more nuanced character that is more akin to the Caesar that's in the newer films, and I don't think that forces them into the personification they go with in this movie. I think this character could be more complex. I think this movie as a whole could be more complex. I actually can't believe how kind of thin and, like, I don't want to say shallow, because it's dealing with a lot of big topics, right? But the movie's like 86 minutes long, and like watching it and then skimming through it again, because I watched it a couple of days ago, so I was sort of skimming through it again before we came on to record, and I couldn't believe just how quickly it progresses some of the things that it progresses, and how quickly it jumps to certain ideas. Yes,
I agree. Like, there are characters who figure things out, like put pieces together, which are of course true, but like the way they get from, like, they're able to put things together so quickly doesn't, that's not the way the brain works. Like, there could have been a ton of other reasons for this, but you just, of course, you went with the correct one without any, like, evidence.
Yeah, I think this movie, like, definitely as we get deeper into the sequels here, where we are going lower in quality, which I suppose kind of answers my question that, for myself at least, before I ask you, is how I feel about this, is that I think there's ideas in here, but I think it doesn't have enough meat on the bone to actually explore the ideas in any way beyond just sort of presenting them. And, you know, here's the idea, but it doesn't really actually explore them. It doesn't really try and say anything about them. It just sort of points out the thing exists and then leaves it with us. And I think the movie feels really thin on actual exploration, to the point where by the time you get to the end, there's some nice beats here or there, there's some nice moments. But it feels more like a concept than it does an actual movie to me in a lot of ways. Plot threads feel very rushed. It feels very undercooked in a lot of ways, and maybe it was rushed out, because I mean these sequels were coming like year after year, basically. So that doesn't really surprise me.
And each time I think they they didn't have a plan, so it's just like, we need another sequel because it made money.
Yeah.
Here you go, Paul Dean. I think that's the name of the writer.
I mean, I think there's things to like in here, and it's a curious piece to look at, just for the, you know, just to see, okay, what did they do? How did some of these ideas evolve into the better things that we got later? But I wouldn't really say this is a good movie per se. I think it's somewhere in between. So how do you feel about it? How do you feel about it?
Well, honestly, like the theatrical cut, when I watched it, I felt very similar. But I love the unrated cut. I thought the unrated cut like was really ballsy, and it goes in a direction that I did not expect, but it makes more sense for the film, and I actually really like it. And if anyone is unsure, like if they have the copy that will have the unrated version, like track it down, because I think that one's really worth watching.
That's interesting, because obviously I didn't watch the unrated cut, so I'll be curious to hear the differences when we get to the spoilers.
Yeah, most of it is, honestly, most of it's in the end. All throughout the film, you see a bit more blood. There's more violence, but the big thing that happens, the thing that changes the theme of the film, happens at the end. That's
interesting. Because I would describe the theatrical cut, I suppose the word I would use is limp. It's kind of a limp film. In a lot of ways, it feels like it's not really hitting hard, and when it does try to bring up the topic of real slavery, I'll be honest, it made me a little uncomfortable that it just kind of threw it out there, and it didn't feel like it earned the right to talk about it in this context and through this lens. I felt like, okay, you're doing something here because you've turned the apes into slaves, so you want to have these parallels. You have this black character who's the one sympathetic character, really. Well, that's not true, the circus owner as well, but out of the new characters, the one sympathetic character. And I felt that whenever they tried to draw parallels or allude, I kind of felt like, I don't know if this is really... I think you do this without saying it, not with really pointing it out and like sort of prodding at it in the dialogue like it does. It kind of felt a bit forced, and just kind of... And we've said this in the past with some of these Planet of the Apes movies where...
Yeah, I think it was worse than the...
second one?
Second one. The second one was really like half-baked, and yeah, it was not the right movie to do that. This one doesn't bother me so much watching it, because I was uncomfortable with those scenes in the second film, but in this one, I think it is part of the plot, like a big part of the plot, so you have to address it.
No, it is. It's one of those things though where if you're going to tackle a very serious topic like that, if the film feels like it's more of a schlocky B movie, and at least in the theatrical cut, I think it does for the most part. I don't think it really earns the dramatic weight.
It is a really low budget film, yeah.
You know, I mean, there's a death at one point, which I won't say what it is yet, but that I laughed out loud at how it was done. I thought it was funny, and I wasn't supposed to think it was funny, but I thought it was funny. It's a very schlocky, low budget movie that doesn't have the skill or the deft touch, and I think tackling that kind of topic, tackling the issue of real slavery and using that as a lens to which look through the plot of this film is such a heavy thing that if you aren't like pinpoint, if you aren't completely accurate, if you aren't really making a bold, poignant statement, it just feels like you're trying to add weight to something with a crutch, because you're taking something that has natural real world weight and saying, hey, if I apply that to this, it'll instantly make it feel like our movie's deep, because we're saying, hey, we can refer to this thing, and because of that, look at us, we're talking about serious things.
It doesn't feel cheap to me. I don't know, this one doesn't feel like it's a cheap tactic to put an emotional thing onto a film. I don't know, in this one I think it works a lot better, especially since we're coming from the animal rights side of things as well. That just naturally, because these animals are very human-like, they just became a slave race, and then from there, because humans have slaves, we automatically kind of turn into a more totalitarian society, or it's just because we allow evil to happen again, we just automatically start becoming those inhumane people again. And I think because of the time it came out, I mean, this is very much, around the time of the American civil rights movements. I think that, sure, like it can look a little bit distasteful looking back on it, But I think at the time it was pretty well received by like the Black community in America.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, do you actually know that? Have you actually?
I mean, according to the trivia, when I looked it up.
Oh, okay. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm looking at this from a 2020 perspective.
Yeah. I mean, how can you not? But
yeah. I mean, 1970.
At the same time, like they don't just gloss over it. You know, like it is an essential part of the plot.
Yeah.
And it is shining evil upon ourselves, and you know. A mirror that we don't like to talk about.
Yes, I guess. I mean, I'm not trying to say it's tacked on. I'm not trying to say it's forced in, because it isn't. I'm just saying the movie's not good enough to make me feel like they earned the right to use it. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah.
You know, like when it's brought up, I'm like, you know what? If this was Dawn, right? If this was Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and they worked some of this in there somehow, and it was like making these like really poignant points, I'd probably be like, oh man, it's you know, it's tackling these big ideas, and it's just, you know, this is science fiction, baby. This is doing because, and it's just about the skill that's at play here. Whereas I feel like this movie is very just in your face, and it's about as subtle as a dump truck. You know, it's
sure.
Not. I think that's
it's
the point
why
I'm trying to get at.
Like the Star Trek, the original series Star Trek episode with the people who have the split faces. So
oh yes,
they're black on one side, and the other ones are white on that side. And it's very like, okay, we get it. Racism is bad. Like in that, I understand that feeling. In this one, because I think it's the entire plot revolves around this, that I think that it is appropriate to talk about in the film.
Yeah. I think maybe if there was more interesting things done with how the characters address it, though, you know, because I don't think anything is. Like, I feel like there's a couple of lines where the white characters kind of just dismiss the idea.
Yeah,
really...
he's like, we're all slaves in our own right. Like, well, that's not really the same.
And there's like a really racist line from one of the cops early on in the film, and I feel like if you'd actually explored it a little bit, if you'd actually explored, because this is the thing, is that the one black character we have, the only characteristic he really has is that he's a little bit sympathetic as part of the governor's like regime. And that's it. There's never any more to him. There's never any more of who he is, what his life is like. You know, how did he end up in this position? Like, I feel like if you want to actually give me this nuanced character, if you want to actually give me a character with depth and make me understand why he's slowly sort of sympathizing and why he's going down this path, but you're kind of boiled it down to just because he's black. And I think that makes it feel really shallow to me.
Well, the other sympathetic character we have is Ricardo Montalbán, another minority. I mean, like, he doesn't have the history
of course,
slavery in his ancestry, not that I'm aware of anyway. And then, but you know, he's also a sympathetic character.
And maybe there could be more stuff that could go down that path. There could be something to be said there. But again, I don't think the film really explores any of this, really. But, you know, I don't think it does. And
I mean, and there's blatant police brutality against the apes that we get to see, and I don't know how much you get to see in the theatrical version versus the unrated, but I mean, we watch a beating, multiple beatings.
No, I mean, yeah,
especially in the beginning.
I mean, it's probably not as bloody, but you do definitely see it. Like, it's definitely there. I mean, it's fine to have these things. I just don't think it's the execution. I don't think it's that good. I think it's okay. It's okay, and it's kind of light, and it's putting these big ideas in there, but I don't think it's actually doing that much with them. I think the characters are all pretty thin. There's not a lot of time devoted. Even Caesar himself, I don't think is that deep a character. I don't feel like I really get to know him.
I don't know. I disagree.
I don't think I do. I feel like his rise of trying to lead an uprising in the middle of the film is just, it's like mostly off camera. There's all of a sudden a montage.
That part does happen very fast.
Yeah. And I felt that way about a lot of the advancements in the film, where just all of a sudden there's a montage, or all of a sudden, whereas I'm like, no, give me a moment. Give me the moment where he gets the idea. Let me, because as much as it's not quite the same as the performance in the newer films with the CG and being able to see all the body language to the same extent, there's moments in this where you can see Roddy McDowall's eyes, and you can see the moments where he's reacting a certain way. And there's a moment, for example, like late on in the film, but there's a moment where he's considering speaking to someone, and you can see that consideration in his eyes. And it's little moments like that where I'm like, oh no, this performance is really good, because I could see in his eyes that he's like, do I reveal who I am? Because obviously he's in hiding. He doesn't want people to know that he's the talking ape that exists, because everyone wants to kill him. And there's little moments like that. So give me a moment where I can see this is the inciting moment for him. And I know technically there is one in a way, but it's something that happens so separately. And the moment where he reacts to it is quite good, but give me something where he gets the idea. Give me something where I see where the gears are turning in his head. Give me something where I see the genesis of, okay, I'm going to actually lead some kind of revolution. I'm going to do this. I'm going to devote myself to this cause. It's not just that because he goes at the start of the film from just kind of being like, oh, why is it this way? Which actually, legitimate complaint. The opening like 5 minutes of the film, once we get past the opening titles, it's just Montalbán like giving tons of exposition to Caesar, even though Caesar's grown up in this world. What is he just not mentioned any of this to Caesar until today when he's taken him to the city? And even if he had kept it secret because he didn't want to, like, you know, burden him or worry him, he wanted him to live like a normal childhood ape life, whatever. You don't think it'd have been good to have this little list of things and rules and how you should interact in the world before you landed in the populated city, like away, but back at the circus? Maybe I'd give him like a couple of days of saying, hey, this is how the world is, this is how you're going to have to operate, you're going to have to pretend to be a regular ape and not be intelligent, blah 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 blah, right? So I felt the writing, I felt the screenwriter being like, here, this is all the information you have to know from the last movie, and all the new information of why we're in this totalitarian society.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's basically what his character is there for until a crucial moment.
Yes, and I think that's the problem I have with the movie overall, is that everything just serves its basic principle with nothing else. And that's all it is throughout the movie. Everything is just there to serve the ultimate point they want to make by the end, as opposed to me being engrossed by, you know, seeing certain... And there's little bits where it almost gets us. There's little moments where Caesar will see another ape being treated poorly, or there's moments where... I don't know, like, you know, Caesar reacts to some news later on in the film that I do think are genuinely good on their own as little pockets of performance or little pockets of building things, but...
yeah, or even there's a really great scene where he first, like, ends up in a camp of sorts, a training facility, and his reaction in that entire scene is very good, I thought.
Yeah, no,
and his acting, I think his acting is really great, especially because he's already been playing a character like this for 2 other movies. He wasn't technically in the second one. Someone else played him. But he's for 2 films now, he's played Cornelius, and he does feel like a younger ape in this, like someone who just has known is very naive and ignorant to the world. He feels like a very different character. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I think the casting of him makes sense. You know, it's not a new or weird thing to cast the same actor to play the child of the, you know, the previous character. It's just, you know, it's a pretty done thing. It's very you know, Back to the Future. Very. Although Back to the Future gets really sloppy with it, because you have like great grandparents are played by one actor, but then Crispin Glover plays the other actor in between. It's weird. Yeah. Like, why does his grandfather look like Marty McFly, but the father, or the great grandfather looks like Marty McFly rather, but the father's Crispin Glover? It makes no sense. Yeah. Whatever. I love those movies. Anyway, so yeah, I have to come down kind of not like super harsh. I don't think this is a bad movie per se, but I don't think it's particularly great either. I think for me, it kind of falls somewhere in the middle where I'm you know, I'm going to be critical and I'm going to be harsh and I'm going to say where I think it is just doing the bare minimum. And, you know, maybe that's a time constraint. Some of it does kind of match some of the other things we've watched from the 70s, where it feels like more of a conceptual film rather than like a fully fleshed out story that actually has a proper beginning, middle, and end, and really feels like you've been through a journey by the end. And the fact that we actually got a really good trilogy that kind of tackles the same story in some ways later only just kind of shines a light on all the things this film fails to do for me. So yeah, that said, the first time I saw this, I think it was before I saw the new films. So
oh yeah, I mean, I watched these as a kid.
Yeah, I didn't see the sequels. I didn't watch the original till I was in high school, so I saw them in my late teens.
Yeah.
Kind of time.
Yeah, these were a staple of my childhood.
So, anything else to talk about spoiler-free wise? You know, other performances are fine. I mean, they're whatever.
They're fine. Yeah.
Nothing spectacular.
Yeah.
Cinematography's not, because that's the thing. There's
some pretty good shots. I thought actually.
There's a couple of good. Well, I have a very conflicted feeling about the last 30 minutes, because I think half of it is quite good and atmospheric when it's quiet, but then when there's actually just like lots and lots of fighting happening, it's just a mess of fighting and like nothing.
There's definitely no choreography.
No,
it's just that some people are going to die, some apes are going to die. But just figure it out yourselves.
Honestly, it's really boring. Like, once to actually get to like just fighting, it becomes really boring because it's just a mess of like bodies just throwing punches and stuff. Yeah. There's really almost nothing to it, and so I
agree. But there are scenes like on the bridge and stuff where it's lit in the background. You're like, this is a really good shot. Like,
no, the quiet moments are great. The quiet
or
moments,
just like the shots of Caesar's face, like up close, I thought were really good, where you can kind of see like how his character is turning. I actually really liked the ending, but I like the unrated version.
Yeah, the quiet moments are great. Whenever it's like just them stalking and it's like building up to the fight starting, that stuff is really good. And it's probably the best, most atmospheric moments in the entire film, to be honest. Once the fighting actually starts, though, it's just kind of... There's one detail I like about it, but other than that, it just kind of becomes a mess of, like, you know, lots of stunt people throwing punches and that's it. And it's like, this is just old Hollywood boring crap. I'm not... I'm just bored by this. Yeah, and I'm waiting for people to be like harsh in the comments. We got a very critical comment in an old Twilight Zone today.
Oh no.
Some people who, and they're always older, and you can tell by the way the comment reads. When you're critical of something that they've obviously grown up loving from their earlier life, they get very snooty and patronizing.
Is it the robot episode?
No, it wasn't. Okay. Nah, it wasn't that one. No.
People were not happy with you with that one.
Really?
I mean, yeah, we had comments like that they were upset with your review. Not mine. I don't think so.
I don't remember, but okay.
I mean, how could you? You put up like 100 videos a day.
I don't remember that specifically. I'll fill you in afterwards. I don't wait. You know, call out a comment or two harshly, specifically on a video.
A mark on my hand, so I remember to ask about it. Okay.
So okay, yeah, I think we're ready to go to spoilers. So I will take this time to thank our Patreon producers for the month. If I can find my mouse, there it is, on the screen. So thank you very much to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Short, Board Now, Al Tribesman, Christopher Moy, Brett Williams, and David Brown. Those are our Patreon producers for the month, which means they are $20 or more over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, and you get to be a producer for that amount. But you can support us for much less than that, can't they, Tara?
That's right. If you enjoy our reviews, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, and if you donate as little as $1 per month, you will get bonus episodes of the Ace. So check out our back catalog of B movies that we have reviewed, including Time Cop, The Transfer Saga, Judge Dredd, the 95 version. Yeah, some David Carradine messes in there. And Red Brown, Garrett Graham, of course, the most important one. And yeah, so head on over there, and if you donate $5 per month, you will get access to these Ace reviews one day early. Some other shows you get a week early. So head on over and check it out. Thank you.
And of course, if you can support us over on Patreon, that's okay. You can hit the like button and comment. Those things do help us out a lot. Even the snooty comments. So
keep them coming.
So full spoilers for Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. I always find that what happens with the snooty comments is that when it comes to a film like this, what will happen is that they won't like that I've been kind of harsh on it, and instead of trying to actually respond to what I'm saying about the film and why I think it's not as good.
They accuse you of not liking slower cinema.
No, oh, that happens too. But they'll try and educate me on the problems that the film's talking about, as if I don't understand the themes or if I don't understand, you know, it's like no. Just because the film, the film's about a really very real important thing in the world. Me saying the film, do you know how many films are about like World War II or the Holocaust? It doesn't just because it's about that doesn't mean that the film itself is actually good. Just because it's tackling a really very real serious thing that we should all know about and learn about, all right? Mm-hmm. You could have a bad movie about a good, or well, a good thing, but you know what I mean, like an important thing that we have to talk about. Like, just because it's about a serious... Anyway, I'm tangent. Tangent.
Is that what the Twilight Zone episode is? It
wasn't, no. But I carefully used examples that were not related to the episode, so no one could figure it out. Although, funny enough, there's probably an episode that's about those subjects that some similar comments been said on, so they're going to think it is, but whatever. I'm just going to take my time. Anyway, full spoilers from this point on for Conquest for the Planet of the Apes. You have been warned. So the film opens outside of just seeing all the apes getting like sort of rounded up in the streets. We have the exposition walk, as I'll call it, where not only does Caesar get to see various apes in like roles. One's a waiter, one's like, you know, polishing shoes, one's picking up a delivery or something, and one's like in a barber's or whatever. And they're all being yelled at or complained about or yada yada yada. But it's mostly exposition. It's mostly Ricardo Montalbán explaining the world to him. Even though 95% of this Caesar should already know.
Yeah.
Like how?
Well, maybe. I mean, I get the impression that he was hiding Caesar very closely in the circus tent, and so did not want him to see the outside world. Except I guess he's 18 now, so maybe he's just got cabin fever. He wants to see other apes, so this is like his big day out. Oh, but he probably should have like told them ahead of time.
I don't think it's that.
List of things.
I don't think it's that at all. Because they're there to hand out flyers because Montalbán wants to get his circus going again. I don't think it's got anything to do with Caesar. He's risking Caesar's life so they can go and Shelley's circus around.
I don't know. Like, if you've been locked up in a circus tent for your whole life and you're 18, you want to go out and see the world, you don't think they had this conversation like, take me with you this time?
Do you not think it would have been wise, again, I'm making a slightly different point here, but much like I was saying earlier,
yeah, they should have gone through the rules before they left the house.
Well, not just that. He stands and explains the context of the world next to this statue in the middle of like a plaza. And I'm like, do you not think it's suspicious you're standing there having such an in-depth conversation with your ape who's not supposed to be able to speak?
I mean, I talked to Foxy and Gus, my cat and dog. People.
Yes, but you speak to them differently. You don't speak to them the way you speak to a person.
Foxy and I have had some very deep conversations.
You don't explain you don't sit down with Foxy and explain why there's like a virus right now. There's a pandemic going on, Foxy, and you have to understand that it started in China and it spread, and now we all have to wear masks. And
we've had this conversation because I have to explain to her why she can't just go up to strangers anymore, and they don't want to come up to her and pet her because there's a pandemic. They don't want to get close to me, even though we're wearing masks right now. We've had this conversation.
Okay. Is Foxy wearing like a muzzle mask?
Oh, that would be so cute. Get a little doggy mask. No.
We should. Dogs and cats can catch it. So, I mean, why not? Why not give them masks?
Tigers too.
Although I'd love to try and put a mask on any of my cats. They would not be entertained with that notion.
I would never put a muzzle on Foxy. Never. Even if she bites.
Okay, so yeah, basically all this goes tits up immediately because there's some brutality. There's an ape being beat up on these steps, and Caesar, Caesar can't help but yell out, "You know, dirty human bastards," or something to that effect, and everyone's like, "Who said that? Who said that?" And Montalbán immediately goes, "It was me," and his accent's like, "I said it, officer." Like, you don't sound like the same voice. "It was me, I swear."
It's a perfect Montalbán.
To the point where the cops don't believe him, so they're like, "Hey, say it, yell out dirty human bastards, like, dirty human bastards. Like,
He's so theatrical.
yeah, but what I love is that one of the cops is like, yeah, it could be him. Like, are you deaf? Right? Are you deaf?
No, I like it because, I mean, you know, memory fades pretty quickly. Like, well, he was shouty and it was a man's voice, so it could have been him.
I mean, Caesar, right? You know, what's your man? I forgot his name all of a sudden. Roddy McDowall, right? He's you know, he's this sort of almost Shakespearean, you know, English thespian sort of voice, and then you have Montalbán doing his accent. And I'm like, oh yeah, these two sound similar.
They're going to be famous. He's got a lot of passion in his voice.
You almost sound like Dracula. I'm almost, you know, there was a joke in the last movie where Zero is like, I load bananas, and that was her, like, you know, talking moment, and it was quite funny. I almost wish it was done like Dracula now, where she just goes, I never eat banana. Oh dear. Immediately though, there's, you know, they have to run. There's a ruckus, and Montalbán's going to go and speak to the authorities to try and clear everything up. He's, you know, Caesar's to hide for a little bit, but if he doesn't come back, which he doesn't, he has to like pretend that he's come in with new arrivals from another country. So he's to infiltrate some arriving apes in a ship and make it look like he's just arrived with them, so there's no suspicious activity. Yada yada yada. Which is what happens ultimately. He has to sneak into a cage, and it goes into the training program as Montalbán's held captive for questioning, because everyone's very suspicious, and the governor immediately is like, you know, we believe that baby was that baby chimp was shot dead, but it could have been the wrong chimp, and you could have swapped the chimp with another one.
I know, like, why would they think this?
They jumped to the right thing immediately. It's really weird.
Yeah, it's very strange. It's not the first time that this happens either.
Last time, you mean?
You mean that's not the last time? Yeah. This is the first time.
That is the first time.
It's not the last time that this happens.
So it's exactly the first time it happens.
Yeah. Edit that part out so that I look better.
I totally will. Narrator voice, he did not.
I know, you never do. Such a jerk. You should be wearing the turtleneck.
Hey, turtlenecks don't mean evil necessarily, just in this movie.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's another one. Someone's going to point out another like sci-fi movie where all it's just because it's the 70s, they don't have the budget to create culotte outfits, so it's just no turtlenecks are the outfit of the future. We can go buy like 50 of those at the store, so we'll just go do that. Easier.
Our old future. I love it.
They used to tailor things. Yeah.
I love that all the apes are wearing clothes too, so they don't have to make costumes with all the fake fur.
That's true, yes. I mean, that's the real reason for it, is they'll have to do the hands, feet, and head for the most part.
And a mask.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, the Caesar stuff is that he gets taken to this training camp. Now, I do think the way this place is set up is like a little poorly thought out from like a set design point of view. I don't understand why it's like a central area and there's just little booths of like training apes to do different things. It feels a bit weird that they're all kind of in one central area. But that said,
there's an outdoor area too.
Yeah. That said though, the reaction to like Caesar seeing like how various apes are conditioned to learn certain skills. The first one, I mean, the first one did make me scratch my head a little bit. I wasn't really sure why there was disco lights in the first area where they were learning how to like pour water into a glass, but
this must be a set from another movie
yeah,
they're borrowing or something.
That's what it feels like, because some of them are quite dark. When I got to the next one and they were trying to condition them to fire, because we learned earlier on that one of the waiters at this restaurant, this ape, got scared of the flame at the grill or whatever, and the guy who runs the place, like, oh, I told him to condition for fire. This is an outrage. I need my money back. And so we see like how they get conditioned for fire. They get conditioned by like a guy with a flamethrower just kind of like flaming them constantly near them. Yeah,
and another guy's trying to give him a banana, so they have to reach through the flames to get the banana. And we know that they're starving them, so that's why they're conditioned to do that.
Yes. Super dark stuff. And you know, eventually Caesar's put in a cell with a few other apes.
Well, there's another one that we see where he gets put in like we see an ape get put in a torture chamber device. I don't know. It's like it's a bed where he's strapped in, and then they put something around his head.
this is teaching the importance of the word no. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So no comes with pain, and the pain is electricity, which comes back later. So yeah. And, you know, no is a very important word in this film.
Yes. So, but eventually, he shows some compassion by like sharing his banana with a few other apes in the cell, and there's a sweet moment. The Montalbán stuff that's going sort of alongside this is that, you know, he's questioned. They don't really believe him. They keep him for questioning. They eventually just kind of say, we believe you. Here, sign this statement, and you're free to go. After, of course, you sit in our authenticator, and Montalbán's like, what does this authenticator do? And I'm like, what do you mean? What does it do? What do you think it sounds like it does? It's a lie detector. That's clearly what it is. Yes, I can't do the accent. All right.
I know it's just so bad.
I'm just doing a generic accent to show that I'm doing someone with an accent. And he basically just admits everything. Like, yes, it's their kid, and the ape talks, and blah blah blah.
Well,
blah.
he doesn't. He says he gets forced into saying one thing. Like, he knew that Cornelius' name.
He's about to, because he's asked the important question, which is the actual backstory stuff, and he just refuses and stands up, because basically he's under like a sort of beam. So once he steps out of it, he's okay. So he steps out of it, and he has the most hilarious death in the whole movie, where in the struggle he just falls out a window, and it cuts to like that POV spinning shot of him going down, but there's like you hear his scream as he's, and I'm sorry, but this is just a really comical. It's a very quick sudden death. It's very comical.
I don't think that this is in the unrated version.
Really?
Well, like, he definitely goes out the window, but you just see the buildings like to indicate that he's falling. You don't actually see him falling, which is a lot more effective.
It's a bit.
It sounds like the other one's very goofy.
It is a bit. I still think it'd be a bit sudden, but yeah, the goofiness of it would definitely be diminished heavily by not having the POV spinning as you hear the scream.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing that before, but
yeah, very
I believe you.
But in the meantime of this, like, Caesar has been trained. He's up for sale. He's up for auction. The governor, the evil governor, like, buys him.
After he gets chosen to breed.
That's a really weird scene, actually, because he goes into, because you hear like an announcement say he'll get like 1 chimp and 3 gorillas for breeding, and like,
but only the prime specimens we want. Yeah.
But he's taken to like a cell, and what I thought was weird, and part of what makes this movie kind of goofy and not that good, is a scene like this where he comes into the cell, and the female chimp has got like her arm and leg up, and she's sort of looking at him like, hey. She's
like crinkling her nose, like,
is it, hey,
in a seductive way.
Yeah, she's like, I'm ready, big boy. I'm like, what is this? What is this?
And they don't get any ape on ape contact, so just a little treat, I guess.
I don't understand why the female ape is seducing him like like a human, basically, with like proper seduction. It felt weird.
Yeah, she probably should be like dancing around, flinging her feces, throwing stuff in the air.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that's how apes do it.
And yeah, it feels like the sort of scene where Caesar, as an intelligent being, should say, I don't think I approve of being thrown in a cage and been forced to mate, or at least feel
but he's 18.
At least feel kind of reluctant. Instead, he just kind of goes, I think I might dabble a little bit. Yes. When the offer presents itself, it feels a bit. I don't know. It's a really weird scene.
It's very quick and forgettable.
It feels. That's what she said. It feels. It feels like he's a character.
Nice.
And how he does this. It also feels just really weird and silly how she's acting, like this ape in the scene. So no one comes out of this scene looking good. The scene's just bad and goofy.
It doesn't really lead to anything other than maybe
no.
Caesar has spread his seed.
Yes. So there's more intelligent apes coming in the next generation.
Yes.
And we can only just assume that between this and the next movie, he probably spread his seed quite a bit.
Well, he has to for the good of the race.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Yes.
I'm sure his girlfriend understands.
Yes. Yeah, that argument never works with me for some reason. So Yeah, so he gets bought by the governor, and it's our sort of, you know, Armando's our... Oh, wait, not Armando. Armando's Montalbán. Hold on. Where's the character?
Is the governor.
No, I'm looking for McDowall. Oh, yeah, that's right. His name's Mr. McDonald. The black character, or one sympathetic character is Mr. McDonald.
Yeah.
Which I remember kind of chuckles like, that's a really Scottish name for this guy. Okay. But he, you know, he's training Caesar how to like pour the, and obviously Caesar knows how to pour a glass of water, but he intentionally gets. I mean, it's actually like a gin or something, but there's like a sort of chaser or whatever.
I think it's Scotch and soda.
Yeah, but he deliberately messes up the second part so that, you know, he doesn't appear too smart, and this is one of the sort of the direct sort of lines that kind of stick out here, where McDonald says, you know, because they all sort of yell about him, and he's like, yeah, just, you know, usually like sympathy or empathy is not or intelligence isn't too, you know, encouraged in slaves. And this is when the governor's like, we're all slaves in one way or another, shut your mouth. Like, he gets really dismissive, kind of throws it away. And this is actually after there was a scene earlier on its own where they're talking about how the fact that there was an ape that killed its master in the middle of the night, and it sounds quite vicious, and it's like, okay, that sounds quite serious. But then McDowall points out that the ape was found with lots of marks and bruising, and as if it had been like tormented and tortured for a while.
It was a retaliation thing, yeah.
And it's like, all of a sudden I'm kind of siding with the ape, and but you know, the human's like, it doesn't matter. She'd been, you know, outrageous.
He probably
anyway.
deserved it. Yeah, that's what he said. There's also, I think, in this scene where we find out that because they want to send him back to like the ape rehabilitation center or something, and then we find out, well, they're too full. Like if we sent every ape to be rehabilitated, then they wouldn't be able to fit any apes in there. So it kind of gives Caesar the idea that they can be overwhelmed with apes.
Yeah, numbers
if they start to revolt, then they have too many numbers.
Yeah, which is good that there's a place for him to get that information. They also let him pick his name, and he's already got a name, but he just like, because they give him like a dictionary or whatever, and a book of names, and he like, they give him a demonstration, but Caesar just like finds his own name. He just looks it up. He's like, Caesar, that's the one.
Yeah.
He's like,
although I think he was named Milo at the end of the last film, because that was the name of the other. But I don't, maybe Ricardo Montalbán didn't want to keep the name Milo.
Well, he was called. He did call him Caesar at the start of the film, so it's not new at this point. Like he was going by that already. But you're right. I mean, obviously something changed. I guess after a while he just changed it back to what the parents wanted or whatever. Yeah,
maybe well, he was named Milo, I think, after the ape that was killed in Escape from the Planet of the Apes, because there was 3 of them initially that came to the past.
Oh,
and one of them died. So I think they named him Milo after that guy, but it would make sense that Ricardo Montalbán, who's harboring an ape that should be dead, give him a different name.
Yeah, and obviously they just don't want, you know, accident is Caesar, given where the plot goes, and that he's going to lead a revolution and whatnot. But yeah,
the Lord's name.
One of the best scenes in the movie is probably where he finds out that Montalbán's died, where he sees the poster, whatever in the street, and he just sort of starts crying. It's a good little scene. It does kind of inspire things a bit too quick, where we immediately go to a montage of the plan kind of unfolding after this. So I don't like that part of it, but the montage itself, of course, does have, it's like all the various apes we saw at the start of the film, so now they're intentionally messing things up. The idea being that if they all get sent to rehabilitation, you know, they're going to be able to sort of form something, but also the fact that a lot of them are like, you know, stealing things or swiping blades or guns, and to the point where, because they don't expect apes to write, there's no suspicion of like you know, other writing.
Yeah, Caesar will change the shopping list and collect more weapons.
So I mean, that stuff is, it's just mostly good. Like I say, it's all a bit quick. It feels like it jumps to it really quickly for me. I think there should really be a scene of him convincing not all the apes to help him, but I think there should be a scene of him convincing one ape to help him. It's just to give us an example of, okay, this is how he's going to start gaining followers, even though they're not intelligent like him yet.
Yeah, we sort of just start to see like apes turn on their humans or do things wrong on purpose.
Yeah. Without
knowing like how Caesar knows them. It's just like, you will see like a shot of Caesar giving the look. Okay eyes. Yeah, like, go ahead. It's time to do this. But that's about it.
Yeah, there's no context for how, like, he's actually amassed this sort of level of
it's just
following.
all of a sudden he's a leader of this group of people, of apes that are collecting weapons and stuff like that.
Yeah, it just glosses over stuff, and it, that's again, it kind of boils back to where my main problems with the film lie, is that it just doesn't develop this stuff enough. But
yeah, I share that.
But of course they do eventually nab him, because they're hunting him down constantly, and McDowall does help him, and Caesar does choose to speak to McDonald, and reveal who he is. And McDowall tries to talk him down.
He helps him because the governor finds out, like through his lackeys or whatever, that he has the talking ape, which somehow they're able to conclude very quickly that he was sold the ape that is the talking ape.
Well, it's because they find out that there was an extra chimp on the shipping cargo, and they were able to trace where that ape was sold to and where it ended up going. So that's how they're able to track that ape to Caesar.
Right. It's just another one of those examples of like how the governor's like aide finds out that there's like, he's going over all the shipments of each cargo of apes, like one at a time. And okay, like, I guess the assistant to the governor would have that access. I don't know why he's doing it though.
Because he's evil and he wants to find
yeah, and like I don't know, they're just able to make the connections really fast,
because every time he shows up with the, like, two guards behind him, they're always walking in unison, again very kind of Nazi SS sort of looking and feeling the way they're moving. Yeah. And some of them even have uniforms that look very SS. Obviously they're not wearing the actual armbands or anything, but
no,
but it's these black military uniforms. So they do actually get Caesar, and it's like McDonald actually saves him by turning the power off to the electrocution device just before they flip the kill switch. Because Caesar does speak to them briefly, because he's in pain and he says have pity as he's dying. They're like, no, let's just kill him anyway, because we don't want to have this to go any further. We don't want to have any problems. We
can't let this future happen. This future where humanity is doomed.
Yeah. But McDowall turns off the power and Caesar fakes it, so they think they've killed him. And Caesar's able to go and start his revolution. I
like the guy who's in charge of like the flipping the switch is just like, he's dead, without like really checking.
Especially since there's a close up on the camera of like the little dial and the meter not moving up when he's when he's turned up the dial.
Yeah, well, he's looking at the table. Yeah, he's not looking at the dial.
And Caesar's putting on a show and doing whatever. I guess Caesar in his mind is just like, oh, I'm not feeling it. This is luck. Oh, I'll just pretend. They'll think I'm dead. Like, it's lucky that he was able to like, think quick enough to pretend to be
he knows how to react.
But this is where I get conflicted with the sort of the last like 20 minutes or so, is because whenever it's them walking around in a group quietly, I mean, there's actually a little bit before that, they break it out of the rehabilitation center where they're killing the guards there, and this is where the flamethrower guy is and where the other tests were. That happens first, but then once they're out in the streets, there's some great stuff of them walking down these dark like streets with just a bit of light behind them. It feels very kind of eerie and quiet. There's no music, which I think is a really smart choice. It actually, in a bizarre way, it made me think a little bit of certain shots from A Clockwork Orange, and it's not the same feeling.
Yeah, I had the same thought,
but there's definitely some similar vibes. And it is worth mentioning this came out a year after Clockwork Orange, so
maybe Kubrick was a fan.
The influence. Wait, why? No, the other way around.
Oh, a year after?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, maybe these guys are a fan of Kubrick.
Of course they are. Of course, every schmuck who's in Hollywood was a fan of Kubrick.
I know. Only the greatest director ever. Sure.
It's funny, the director of this movie, because I looked him up. I was curious. He'd been directing movies for a long time before this. He actually made the original Cape Fear in 1962, so he goes way back. He'd been making movies since 1950, and made them up until 1989. So. Including his output does seem to vary to a lot of lower class stuff. I mean, I don't know if Death Wish 4 is seen as the pinnacle of movie making, but
is that with Bronson still?
I think so. I think he did most of them, did he not?
Yeah, I think he did like 6 of them.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah. Until Bruce Willis decided to do every right wing nuts dream movie with the remake. I never saw it, but the trailer.
I refuse.
The trailer made me roll my eyes very hard. So yeah, once they actually fight, and the one detail I really liked though in the fighting is so the one group of apes get killed quite quickly by like a team of soldiers, riot police, whatever. When Caesar and that came up afterwards, and there's some dead apes, and it feels quite dark, it feels quite stark. I like that the way they sort of attack the humans is they've got some apes up on the roof and they jump down with nets. I like that because it was a really neat callback to the original film, because they used nets on humans in the original. I like that detail. That was a nice touch.
Yeah, I mean, even though the apes have guns, like they still choose to bludgeon with the guns instead of shooting them. Like they are still animals. They don't really know how everything works, you know? Yeah,
except Caesar, obviously. There's actually a couple of stupid moments later on where when they're coming up to the main plaza of the building where the governor is, and there's another big riot squad, and they're fighting because they try and talk to them at first. You know, the riot guy's got the megaphone. There's a couple of stupid moments in this where some of the police are just standing still firing, even though Caesar's firing a machine gun. I was like, you're not going to try and take cover? They just stand there and wait to get shot. It's just it's what some of these dumb like movie moments where there's no thought to what the characters are doing in the action scene.
And in the unrated version, we get a lot of like tomato soup being thrown into the faces of people and apes. And there's a good shot where a guy gets like punched by an ape, and you just see like come out of his mouth. Like obviously he was holding on to it. It was great.
Damn, I wish I'd seen this.
It was a really good scene.
This sounds like a more fun, because I was honestly mostly bored during this fight scene because it was mostly just a bunch of extras. Yeah,
there are a couple of good shots, but for the most part, you're right. It is very much just fight each other. That's my direction.
That's what it feels like. Yeah. No flow to it anyway.
It should be mostly apes that win. So just there it is. Go.
Yeah. The part I did like though is that when they break into the command center, and as this has been going on, the apes that they've got as servants in the command center eventually start sort of fighting back to the point where the governors will just shoot them all. And one of them's I mean, this is very thin, but one of them's kind of Caesar's love interest, not the one that he had a sex with in the. At least I don't think it was.
I don't know. Honestly, I couldn't tell if it was the same one. I think it might have been.
Well, maybe
they had the same color eyes.
But she does get shot here too. She doesn't die, but the other ones who are in the room die. But I did kind of like when they're so the apes are like basically coming through with like a blowtorch to get through, and like I did like as soon as they got the door in, they immediately just jumped in and started firing and killed most of the humans very quickly. And this leads to one of two big speeches at the end, and this is Caesar's got the governor and he's like, okay, what was different about us? Why weren't we just pets like cats and dogs? Why did you have to turn us into slaves? And that's an interesting thought coming from him, I think, is he's saying, you know, being pets wouldn't necessarily have been that bad if we're never going to get more intelligent, if we're just going to be pets, whatever, because let's face it, some dickheads aside, we're pretty nice to our pets. All
I would
considered.
say we treat our pets better than we treat any other animals on Earth.
And he gives this speech about, well, because we evolved from ape, and ape represents the beast that's inside every man, and we have to control it, we have to dominate it. He gives this, you know, speech.
You remind us of the animals that we still are or something. I actually really like the speech, and coming from like this guy who's super campy in his acting and like just so evil, like I don't know, like I got into it. I thought it was pretty good.
It's not a bad speech. It kind of like the movie like kind of lost me by this point, so I wasn't necessarily like waiting for like big.
Oh, this is the scene, or this is the speech where I'm just like, all right, I'm back in.
It was kind of like, okay, all right. It wasn't a terrible speech, and at least them going outside. McDowall, you know, because I think another ape's about to kill McDowall, and Caesar comes up and says, no, he's good, he's all right. Leave him alone. But there's this debate that happens with the outside. So I'm going to tell you what happens in the theatrical cut, and then you can tell me the alternate cut, because this is where I assume it gets very different.
Yeah.
So the governor's pinned down with some apes. Lisa's there, which is the female ape that is kind of the love interest. I think was it Lisa? I think it was Lisa.
I think so. Yeah. Lisa or Liza? Maybe.
Regardless.
Female ape.
Basically, they're still killing some of the guards and stuff, and McDonald's like, hey, why are you not showing mercy? Why are you doing this? What gives you the right to do this? And Caesar responds with, oh, I have the right of a slave to like fight back against my oppressor. Yeah. And McDowall actually says the line, as a descendant of slaves, I'm asking you to show mercy. You know, humanity. This is inhumane. And Caesar responds with, well, I wasn't born of humans, I'm not a human. And he basically is going full like dictator, well, not dictator, but like full-on revolutionary leader, violent, willing to do anything it takes. And this is where I was kind of like, you know what, being a fan of the newer movies, I kind of don't like Caesar being this kind of like black and white, like this one note, kind of harsh and villainous and whatever. But in the theatrical cut, it takes a bit of a turn, because as he's about to give the order to kill the governor and everyone else is still alive, human-wise, because he's saying, you know, tomorrow the apes on 5 continents will, you know, copy what we did here today, it'll spread and there'll be more of us and blah blah. The female ape, Lisa, or whatever name I'm forgetting, she kind of like stutters and says no. She actually wants Caesar to show compassion, and this is what actually makes him to say, okay, and he changes his speech, and the final speech of the movie is, no, we are going to become the dominant species on this earth, but God's willing, giving us the right to rule with mercy and rule with compassion, and we're better, so we're going to. And today is the dawn, or it doesn't say dawn, but today is the, you know, what was, I don't know, it's not one of the titles of the movies, but it's today's the birth of the Planet of the Apes. Today's the genesis of the Planet of the Apes. So it ends with the title of the franchise, and it just ends pretty much there. It goes to credits as some sort of roaring and cheering and whatever. So, on the one hand, I don't like how one note he is, being so kind of like, I'm going to kill all the humans, I hate humans, long live the apes. That feels really harsh. But on the other hand, it also feels like they kind of chicken out by having him at the last, very, very last minute go, you know what, yeah, we should have compassion. Because it doesn't really feel like the movie's built up to him making this choice. And yes, because everything up before this point is that his entire motivation is almost spurred on by the death of a human being. That's what kind of really motivates him to get going. And then when he argues with McDowall about, you know, trying this revolution, and McDowall says, oh, it'll probably fail, he's like, yeah, it probably will. But the second time it may not, the third time probably not. You know, we'll keep trying, we're going to keep going. It doesn't feel like it's building up to eventually say, no, we're better. Because I do like, overall, I like the idea of saying, no, we had to overthrow you because you were doing a shitty job. You were being awful and being monstrous, but we are better than you. We will rule with compassion. We were going to make a better Earth, and you'll have a place in it. If the movie actually,
we'll have to be in charge for that to happen.
But if the movie was building to that point, because one of the things that he says to McDowall is, you know, because McDowall says some of us aren't cruel, some of us are kind, and he says, yes, some of you are, but most of you aren't, and you won't be kind unless you're taught to be kind, unless you're, you know, we force you to be kind. And I think if it felt like it was building up to him saying, no, we are going to be better, we are going to be more humane than humans are, because that, I mean, hell, that sentence almost writes itself to be like a nice poignant beat, right? Say, no, we're going to prove we're better humans than you are, we're going to have more humanity than you, and we're going to be better, and we're going to treat you better than you ever treated us, and we're going to show you what compassion and what a good civilization actually is. Instead, it feels like the girl really like says no, and he just kind of goes, oh yeah, second thought, yeah, compassion, yes.
Well, yeah, but also, like, she says no. She has the ability to speak. Like, that's a big thing.
Yeah. I didn't mean to gloss over that. Of course, it's a big deal that she is also gaining intelligence. And
right, which means, like, this is something that humans did without even realizing it. You know, like, a lot of domesticated animals are smarter than, you know, non-domesticated ones. Like, this is a thing that happens. Pigs have, like, the intelligence of, like, a 2 or 3 year old human child or something like that. And it just happens through domestication. I'm sure dogs are smarter than a lot of hamsters. I mean, actually, I don't know that for sure. But you know, like,
well, yeah, I was talking more about his decision in the speech he makes at the end. I wasn't talking about the other part of it, which is a clue the apes are also gaining intelligence with it. No, it is a big deal, but that's not the complaint I was making. The complaint I'm making is that it feels like he just flips at the end, and I'm not really satisfied with before he makes the flip. I'm not satisfied after he makes the flip. I'm just kind of left with going, I guess that's where it has to go. Fine, I guess we're going. I don't really feel like the movie built up to him making this great decision that felt like, no, this is the right one, and I'm satisfied that he made it, and he showed like this growth that the humans couldn't. The movie's not built around it. It doesn't build up to it that way. So with that said, well, how does it differ?
In the unrated cut, which is the original cut of the film, which was altered in order to make it more PG, is very different. The female does not speak up. So we just get the images of Caesar with fire around him, watching like all the bodies of humans being piled up by apes. And he gives this speech of rage towards mankind. And McDonald still says like you the same lines, but then when he's done with his anger speech, all the other apes kind of look down at the governor and bludgeon him to death. And that's where the movie ends. The movie ends with, no, you guys were awful to us. You don't deserve this world anymore. And we are going to start the Planet of the Apes. I mean, they don't say the title in the end of this movie.
It ends
at the end of his speech.
It's very Hollywood for them to actually yell out, that was the start of the Planet of the Apes. I will concede that.
Caesar's last line is that speech of anger and rage and like, I've taken everything from you now. Like this world doesn't belong to you anymore. And it ends with with our villain being, bludgeoned to death.
I want to make it clear that I have no problem with the darker ending, and I have no problem with a Caesar who is this, this driven.
I know. You really do compare this a lot to the new movie, and I don't blame you because I also love those films. But I mean, when these movies were written, they didn't have a plan. This was going to be the end of the Planet of the Apes series, as far as they knew when this movie was over. And when I watched the unrated version, hold on. Okay. When I watched the unrated version, I literally had to pick up my jaw. Like I was so blown away with how this movie ended that I really elevated it to me.
I don't think the movie earns the ending though. This is the thing.
I do. I mean, they killed his only sympathetic human by throwing him out of a window. Or he fell, but Caesar doesn't know. Once the last sympathetic human in his life dies, that's when the turn happens. Yeah, sure, some of them are good. McDonald's good. I'm sure there are other good humans out there, but most of you are bad. So we're taking over.
Yeah, no. It technically does happen, but it happening is not enough. There has to be more to the actual storytelling of the journey of how he gets to that point. It's a switch that's flipped. There's no progression in the writing in his character. He's just all of a sudden a leader. He's just all of a sudden a revolutionary. There's no a good bit of storytelling here, right? If the entire movie is going to build up to this dark moment where where this is the direction he's going, and it ends in this dark sour note, then it should be a character study of this character as he is being pulled between which direction he's going to go in. And we should feel the weight and the impact of why he's letting it go this way at the end. And we should feel the sadness of the tragedy. We should feel the dark tragedy of, oh no, he's going down this dark path.
I don't think we know exactly how far down the path he's gone. We don't know until he makes that speech at the end, which is why in the theatrical version, when he switches to the opposite, it feels very unnatural and weird, and I don't like it. And it's also obviously ADR, and it's just a lot of the shots done again, reused footage. It wasn't nothing was shot new for that tacked on speech at the end. They just had Roddy McDowall say the line.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're comparing the new tacked on ending to the original one. What I'm saying here is that the original one, while better, I don't actually think retroactively makes the fact that the journey to get there really the ending alone on its own, I don't think is enough. You have to have the meat building up to it to make it feel it has impact.
I think it is there. And I think we just don't know how far down, we don't know how far Caesar is going to take this. Until the very end, we see, oh, he's taking this all the way. He's totally gone. He has no sympathy left for humans. And I think it works in this film. I know you want to have a poll of the good or the light or the dark that he feels more of.
Well, that's the example I'm giving. Give me anything. This movie is far too bare bones. I don't think any of this is there at all. I think there's...
But I don't realize until the very end that he has gone all the way to
because of bad rain. Because of bad rain.
No, I think it's a shock, and I think that I like it though. It's unexpected, and but it does sort of hold up with the way the movie was going. There was nothing that tells me that he should have been going to the other side. I just was hoping that he would, because I wanted to see that.
This ending would work if we got to this point and him going down this darker path when he sort of lets this happen, this really dark kind of death happen at the end, and where this ending leaves us. This would work if your reaction was oh, maybe I didn't see that coming, maybe it is a shock, but it really makes sense. It really feels right because of the journey we've seen him go through in this movie. What I'm saying is I think we barely see him go through a journey in this movie.
Oh, we do. We totally do. We see him first of all, his owner gets killed in a way, and then he gets tortured and he gets sold as a slave. He gets told the word no over and over again. He watches his brethren get beaten and murdered all the time. And then he is asked to be sympathetic and to not be pure evil and let humans live and then he says no, like in his own way. He says no by giving this speech like, screw you guys.
we get the cliff notes of his journey. We don't actually get the journey itself. We get everything.
There are parts that are rushed, and I would agree that I would like to see more. That's my problem, but I don't think that it takes away from the ending. Everything
you just listed there is the level of depth the movie actually gives you. It gives you just that his mentor, father figure human is killed. He reacts, he's upset. That's it. There's no more to it than that. And then, he sees these other things happen. He's sold as a slave. He is sold as a slave, and we get 1 or 2 scenes of him being a slave, and that's it. There's no inner struggle. There's no moments of
he gets tortured. What about that scene?
He gets tortured, yeah, but it's all just very like individual.
His girlfriend gets shot. his brothers get killed. I think there's enough there, and I think Roddy McDowall's performance and his reactions to each scene are really good. That I think this really works.
I don't think most of these moments are given the weight they're supposed to have, and I feel
think
like
they could have more.
They're just I mean, they're kind of what you're giving me here. They feel like a list of bullet points. Technically, we checked all these boxes. We went through all these moments. They're there, but I don't actually feel like most of them. I won't say all of them, but most of them don't feel like they actually have the way. Like, where's his sadness? I don't get a scene where I feel like he's realized he's a slave and he's in a cage and he feels alone and helpless. I don't feel him being helpless at that point in the movie. I feel like he's just reacting to what he sees around him because it's like a movie with a guy in an ape costume. I don't feel a moment where he's like scared or he feels like he's alone because his mentor's been killed. We see him cry, but we don't see a moment where like he actually feels lost and alone, and maybe that's why he's inspired to build a new civilization, because he's like, no, I don't have to be alone. I can have this. I can form new allies and new family and new friends. But we don't get anything like that. We don't get any kind of moment where he like feels the fear of anything, and the fear could turn to rage, which could then turn to the ending. Like, there could be a progression here that actually has moments where I feel the emotion coming from the character throughout the film. Instead, I get a film where the bullet points, that the check boxes are ticked as we go down the key events that will get to the end, so that you can sit there and give me, yes, technically this happens and this happens and this happens, but I don't feel the impact of any of them. I see just a list of things happening, and that's kind of what it feels like in the movie. It feels like a sequence of various incidents with them that I never really feel get the gravitas of the moment. Like, even that moment where he's in the cell with the first apes after he is given the tour of the rehabilitation place, and they're all sort of fighting over this one banana because the guard is cruel and only gives him one banana, and he barks at them a little bit, not literally, I'm using that as a metaphor, and he says no wait, and he breaks off the banana one by one and gives him each an equal share of the banana. And even that moment I felt like this could have been better. Like, I like what they're doing here, but I should have felt more from this. I should have something more from these other apes that they're receiving like kindness from someone when they're not used to it. Like, this could have felt like a more prominent moment for the character. And there's and yes, it does hurt that I know there's a much better journey to go through with this concept and these characters. It does, but even removing the later films and removing everything else, I think this film is kind of mediocre, and I don't think the ending saves it. Is what I'm saying. Okay,
well, you haven't seen the ending that I just saw, and I think the ending is spectacular.
Okay, but even if
I liked watching this Caesar go on his Walter White journey to just being the bad guy at the end.
Oh, see, you've made a mistake here. You've made a fundamental mistake there, because comparing any character journey to Walter White is a bad idea. Because
I didn't even finish it because it was way too long.
How dare you? What?
But I know what happens.
But that's it. I mean, what you just said is kind of what I want. I want Caesar as Walter White in this movie. I want the Walter White Caesar journey.
But that's it. At the end, he gives the "I am the one who knocks" speech. strange.
And I felt nothing from it because, like, it didn't have the same gravitas. Not just because it's not Bryan Cranston, not just because it's not Vince Gilligan writing for 4 seasons when it gets to that point. But
Well, no, I definitely disagree. I think the reactions that you're looking for are there, and maybe on a rewatch you would see them. I see Caesar's pain when he goes through everything. I see his reactions. I think Roddy McDowall did a really excellent job acting through the ape makeup.
He does a good job with what he's given, right? But I don't think he's given that much, especially given the material that it's kind of dealing with. But also, I'd like to add, you said maybe in a rewatch. This is a rewatch. I've seen it before. This wasn't a first time watch.
Watch the unrated version.
Oh my god, I'm not watching it again. I don't like it enough to watch it again.
I do, and I will.
Like, I know you love the series. I know you do, but
I do.
They're not all that good, okay? Like, the first one's a great movie. Third one's fun. Second one's got its moments, right? The third one's also surprisingly dark, as we talked about last time.
Yeah, the third one's really good.
But I do think this is where it kind of, I won't say it goes off a cliff, but I feel a diminished return here. I feel like they're throwing it, and the general idea of the movie's pretty good. Like, the general idea, because we're saying there's a lot of potential in this journey. The fact that we just said this should be the Walter White of the Planet of the Apes movies, where we see him go through this Walter White-esque journey, tells you exactly what potential I think is in this character.
Yes. I mean, it's not the same Caesar as the one that you love from the new trilogy, but like, I watched a movie where I saw our protagonist become the bad guy at the end of it, and I loved it. Like, I really did not expect it, and it really got me.
Are you talking about this movie?
Yeah, because I watched the unrated version.
Loved?
Where it has...
Loved?
Yeah.
Come on, then. Come on.
I did. I mean, there are parts that I don't love, and there are, I do share complaints. Okay. Like, I do think that I said loved from the beginning. Like, I said I loved the unrated cut.
I'd forgotten. It was such a shocking statement that my mind just blanked it out, and now you're just shocking me all over again. But continue.
Shocking, like the ending of this film.
Oh, it's not that shocking.
I do think that there are scenes that are rushed that I would have liked to be fleshed out, and I do think that Ricardo Montalbán is there just to be, Mr. Expedition, but that's okay. This
is going to sound extreme, right? I think this movie's an hour too short. That should be 2.5 hours long. That should be.
I would like at least another half an hour.
Yeah, that should be 2.5 hours. The journey should be way more fleshed out and in depth, and we should really feel. We should always be going through the character's mind. In fact, I would argue we shouldn't even see the death of Montalbán's character. That should be something we discover with Caesar. We should have just stayed with Caesar the whole time.
Well, I mean, that scene was a bit goofy, and that's why.
Well, not just that. I think that'd be really effective. I'm thinking of like other movies where you don't discover the death of a character until the main character that you're following discovers it, and the impact that has, the shock that has. And it definitely wouldn't be goofy. It would feel like it'd have even more weight than it does, because it'd be like, oh shit, just out of nowhere he's found out that his father figure is dead. So no, this is like, we're definitely into B movie territory with this one, like heavily so. I
mean, from the first sequel.
Yeah, that's true. But I don't think the rating. I don't think, and while there's some good nice shots, I don't think the writing or the direction, because direction's not just shots, of course. Direction's also directing the actors. It's a unified vision, bringing it all together, and something as simple as the amount of focus on a certain thing, or the choreography and the fight scenes, which is just kind of like a mess. All of that kind of falls under direction. I think the script is just lackluster. It feels like a script that was like a first draft or a second draft that needed like another 10. It feels like a really undercooked movie. It feels like a movie that was in the oven for about 5 minutes when it's supposed to be in there for 6 hours. And yeah, sure, that raw chicken.
Stop.
That would kill you. That would just kill you. Something that won't kill you if you eat it raw. Beef. I don't know. Brownie. Okay. And sure, yes, that fairly cold, undercooked brownie that's very powdery because it's not actually in doughy.
Oh, Powdery? What kind of brownies do you make over there in the UK?
Well, I've never baked a brownie myself. I would imagine there's some powderiness.
No, if it's undercooked, it's too wet.
Okay, it's wet. Okay, sure, whatever. Look, I never said I was a baker, all right? Don't try and pull me up because I can't bake.
Have you not burned anything that has bread in it? Like, that's when it becomes like dry and powdery.
No, I was thinking more of the sprinkly stuff you get on top. I guess that wouldn't be in the oven, but like just
Okay.
is this really the hill we're going to fight on today? It's my misunderstanding of how to bake a brownie.
Well, you had your chance, and this is my world now.
Yes. Apes kill man, woman kills ape, women inherit the earth.
Exactly.
It's a Jurassic Park reference for all you kiddies at home.
I'm sure they know.
They may not, I don't know.
Everybody knows Jurassic Park.
Yes.
Line by line.
Does that make me the Malcolm of this show? I think it does. I can't do it. I can't do it. Try to do the Goldblum laugh. It's not happening.
You know who you are from Jurassic Park. Why try to fight it?
That's true. Oh, that's a good point. Yes, I'm Hammond. Of course I'm Hammond. Yes. Yes. Spared no expense. Hello, John. Hello, John.
The one impression you're great at.
I really hate that man. So, anyway, we were fighting about this movie. You see some charm in it. You see some merit.
Mm-hmm.
I respect that. I do. But I got to stand my ground and fight a little bit.
That's fine.
And I think this movie is only okay. And it has some ideas, but I think a lot of them are undercooked. And even the darker ending of the unrated cut, I don't think the movie necessarily is good enough to make it feel like that ending makes the whole thing better. So, with that said, would you like to sum up and rate Conquest of the Planet of the Apes?
Well, I think I've already summed things up pretty well, but
That's fair.
if I had to rate the
yes, but
theatrical
you said something
version,
stupid in the first sentence, so I had to interrupt you to counteract. So I've forgotten the rest of it, but feel free. Right, sorry.
Anyway. So if I'm rating the theatrical cut, which is the cut that was released, I don't love it. I think it is weak at the end, especially since I know what the original ending was supposed to be. I do still have the same complaints about how scenes just sort of jump to we're here now, and there was no build up or anything, or how do we get there? I don't know, whatever, just deal with it. But that being said, I do think there's a lot of strong themes in the film. I think the movie is taking big risks by showing those themes. I like the dystopian, old future that we get now. I like what it's saying about humanity, and I like what it's saying about animal cruelty still and animal rights. And I think that it is a 6.5 for the theatrical version.
What would you rate the unrated version?
An 8.
You got a point and a half?
Yeah, I really like it.
It's how you said for the theatrical version. Like, you were fighting me that much and a 6.5? Are you mad, woman? But okay, fair enough. Yeah, I'm going to have to go lower than that. I'm going to go with 5.5 for this. I think it's basically almost in the middle. There's enough things to kind of like for completion's sake to watch it, but I don't hold the sequels as in high regard as Tara. And I think the reason why is because I remember this one not being that good. 2's not that good, although it was a bit more entertaining than I remembered it when we watched that again for the show.
I like the worshipping bomb humans that live underground. They're so cool.
I honestly,
they're so Star Trek.
I don't know if I've seen, or if I have seen, I don't know if I remember anything from Battle for the Planet of the Apes, so I'm very curious to see how I'll feel about that one.
Paul Williams is in it. That's pretty cool.
And we'll see how we would debate that bad boy. But yeah. So if you made it this far into the review, to let us know you got towards the end, put the word salad into the comments.
What?
Because salad can also be Caesar.
Oh, stupid.
Shut up! That was a fine connection. How dare you? Also, Tara's going to pose for the thumbnail now, so here we go. 3, 2, 1, pose! I cannot use that because your arm's cut off on the wrong side.
Okay, I'll do it again.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, pose! Yeah, that's good, that's good.
I'm an ape.
It can be cut off at the bottom, it can't be cut off at that side though, because that's the side that goes out into the middle of the thumbnail.
Well, fine.
So I used to have the arm.
Just keep Christmas pork in it if you can.
Never. So worth mentioning that whenever you put your hands up for a pose, it always makes more work for me when I'm cutting around it later. So
You're welcome.
Yeah, have that known.
This is my world now.
So yes. Yeah, I'm just glancing at the IMDb user reviews to see if there's anything entertaining in the titles. I don't suspect there is for this one. What is kind of fun looking at a review, like a movie like this, though, is that the reviews date all the way back to like the late 90s, which I assume is roughly when IMDb kind of started.
That sounds about right. It was one of the first internet pages that I bookmarked.
Man. There's a title here where the reviews, which is a 9 out of 10 for the record, that says, "My sister was 5 years old when we saw Conquest." I'm like, that's not a good title. I mean, you're basically just starting your description of what you're talking about with that, but okay, that's fine. We have one that just says "Bleh" as the title. Give it a 4 out of 10. That's quite harsh.
A little bit.
Yeah, I feel like people are going to be more on your side here. But I think people sometimes, again, just because it's tackling serious subjects, are going to think I'm being dismissive and not appreciating the seriousness of the topic at hand.
I mean, we've had serious subjects brought up in TV and film where we're like, no.
But the people who are going to complain are not the people who have seen me talk about serious subjects in good movies that have heard me talk about them in other contexts. They're people that have only found this review and are mad that I don't like the film that they love. So they'll sit there and lecture me and say, don't you realize how serious these topics are? This is why this movie's so great, because it talks about, it does talk about them, but other better movies talk about them.
Well, the important thing is that they'll be on my side.
Oh, dear. This is a controversial one. A big improvement over the last Ape film.
Ooh, that is surprising.
I don't agree with that. I don't you do either. You like the last one more still.
Well, yeah, I do really like the Escape a lot, but I don't know, this unrated version. Maybe he's talking about that. Or she.
Yes. Who's to say? Who's to say? I mean, from the early 2000s on the internet, I think he or she don't apply. I think just cretin is maybe the better word for them. But there you go.
Yeah.
That will pretty much wrap up.
And next week's
special. So the next 2 episodes are going to be a special 2-part top 50 countdown, where both myself and Tara have prepared our very own top 50 sci-fi movies of all time list.
This is so hard.
Tara's been working away, every night, working away at our list.
This is the worst assignment you've ever given me. I hate it.
So we're going to be revealing that. So we've both got our own lists. We'll reveal them. We'll alternate. Tara will give her 50. I'll give my 50, and we'll go back and forth. It'll be a 2-parter because these run long, and even split into 2, I suspect both parts will be long. So
yeah.
So look forward to that. But that's essentially the Christmas and New Year's kind of specials. Because funnily enough, there's not a lot of Christmas sci-fi movies. We had one for the bonus movie last year, which was Santa Claus Meets the Martians, or Conquers the Martians, and that basically exhausted the Christmas sci-fi genre.
Yep.
Whereas every year, me and Tim have like 3 or 4 Christmas. We're like, yeah, let's do some Christmas.
This is why we should be filmmakers. We should make one. We should start a new genre.
A Christmas sci-fi.
Yeah.
Santa is just an alien. He's still nice and all that, but he's an alien.
Is there no one that like puts up a Christmas tree on like a satellite dish? No.
Maybe.
Or a satellite whatever. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, actually, a really simple one would just be like a colony on Mars that's celebrating Christmas. But so it's on Mars, but it's set at Christmas time.
So it counts.
Yeah, that would count. Yeah. I kind of want that movie now.
Or an Alien Santa. Is there no Alien Santa horror films?
There probably is. There's definitely like a devil Santa horror. I'm sure there is one, like where Santa's actually a devil, but
that doesn't work though. What about a clone of Santa, or a clone of Hitler who dresses as Santa?
What?
That sounds like a movie that exists.
It sadly does, but only because people are weird and there's a lot of movies. So there we go. That's what's coming up next time on the Atomic Ceramic Experiment. And that actually takes us up to episode 98 with the second part of that. So there'll be an episode 99 and then we'll be doing episode 100, which is special. So hopefully you'll want to celebrate with us in any way you can. So yeah.
Yeah, you look like you're done.
I was checking my I had like a slight ingrown fingernail before and it's fine now, but it's been healing around where it was like a bit iffy before. I was just examining it, did some medical examinations. Now see, I look at my nails. See, I learned this from Third Rock from the Sun, is that men look at their nails like this, women look at their nails like that. See, you gotta.
I learned that too from Third Rock.
But for the record, I think it's stupid. It doesn't matter. Look at your nails however you want. It doesn't. But it's a funny scene because John Lithgow makes everything funny. So,
Sure
but there you go. That has been Conquest for the Planet of the Apes, or of the Planet of the Apes. So thank you very much once again for joining us. You can of course get us on the Twitter at mailed_fuzz for channel updates and stuff. You can of course also catch us. I don't know where I was going with that sentence. You can like and subscribe, usual stuff. That helps us out a lot on YouTube, as does like a review and 5 stars on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast from. Tara, would you like to promote any other piece of Male Fuzz TV content? And you're on a lot of it, so you may go on. Chill.
I'm right now. I'm guest hosting for Star Trek Discovery. So if you've been enjoying the new season, maybe check out the reviews of Star Trek Discovery. See my thoughts.
And if you haven't been enjoying the new season, you'll probably agree with my thoughts. So there's someone for everyone on the Star Trek Discovery reviews. Yeah, so there you go. That's that. I will mention, will this be too late by the time this goes out? No, it won't be. This is going out this week. I will mention that on Monday the 21st of December, so just like a day, maybe 2 days after this goes out, there'll be a 12-hour Christmas stream that I'm doing on the channel. So come and join if you want to celebrate Christmas. There'll be goals and there'll be all sorts of things. We watch party things. We watch Christmas movies together, play some games, things like that. And yeah, should be fun. So
isn't that under a different channel?
No, that one will be on the main channel. The big 12-hour special streams I'll do on the main channel. And I should probably do something special for 10,000 subs when we get there, which should be January at the current rate.
Or maybe December 31st.
It could be. We'll see.
We have a bet going.
Yes, we have a little bet going. It's a win-win for me.
So tell your friends.
Tell your friends to come and subscribe. Male Fuzz TV on YouTube. Alright, that is us. Thank you once again for watching or listening. I thought this would be a shorter one, and we're actually longer than the last few episodes.
You've been stretching this ending out for
I'm not stretching! I'm doing the wrap-up right now. I'm doing the wrap-up right now.
Adding IMDb reviews, adding other promotions after I've already promoted something.
I did that last week. And the stream is relevant for this week only. So yes, I wanted to promote it.
Alright, let's wrap this up already.
Thank you very much for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction films and computer at Salsa.
No.